Perfect timing, Troy. All right. Well, welcome to the May 3rd Transportation Commission meeting. We are going to kick this off with a roll call. Remember, as we go through this for the commissioners, you need to indicate where you are calling in from, county or city and county would be great. So I'll start with Syed Haider.
Yes, I'm here. I'm calling from East Lansing. I think I live in Clinton County.
Julie Rojeski.
I'm here and attending from East Lansing in Ingham County.
Troy Fassbender.
Here from East Lansing in Ingham County.
John Boyce. He's not attending today. Joel Lichty.
Well, Lichty reporting from East Lansing in Ingham County.
Josh Cooper.
I am here attending from East Lansing, Ingham County.
Scott McCormick.
I'm here attending from East Lansing in Ingham County.
Fantastic. Thank you all. So we'll move on our agenda and we'll go to the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. We'll continue on with the approval of the minutes from the March 1st, 2021 meeting. You guys have had a chance to look at them. I'll take motion.
I so move.
All right, moved by Scott. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Josh.
Yes.
All right. Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move on to written communications. I do not have any written communications to share. Does anybody else from the team?
I have none.
Okay. We'll move on to communications from the audience. Emily, do we have anybody that's called in today?
Nicole, we do not have any attendees.
Thanks, Brad.
Yep.
All right, moving right along. Maybe we should have Mdot come every meeting. We're going to go ahead and go right to our business agenda. Today we'll have a presentation or a question and answer session from Mdot Lansing Transportation Service Center. Today we have the manager, Greg Losh. We have Melissa Longworth, Carrie Martin as other Greg here. I don't see him, so he's not able to come. Okay, so I'll turn it over to you, Greg. You can do a better job at introducing your team and we'll go from there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Transportation Commission. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to the group. I just want to make sure real quick, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, good. All right, so as far as a presentation goes, I really was just gonna kind of go over the TSC's kind of role in the area, our staffing, and then kind of give just an overview, maybe 50,000 foot view of our program in the area so that you kind of have an idea of what's going on and you know who to ask questions for if you see the stuff going on around. And then open it up to any questions you may have regarding things that MDOT's involved with. So that being said, again, I'm the TSC manager. And then with me today, I have Melissa Longworth. She's our operations engineer. So she handles a lot with pretty much anything from permits to utilities, drainage, maintenance. There's traffic and safety and operations. So she has a very full plate, well-rounded list of challenges she gets to be involved with every day. And then Carrie Martin is with me from our region office. Our region office is in Jackson. I'm seeing some nodding, so I think a lot of you have probably worked with Carrie before, but she is our go-to planner for our region. So when we start talking about a lot of the aspects that maybe engineers struggle with a little bit, as far as looking forward and looking around and looking holistically at everything, Carrie is who I go to every time I know I get that inkling that there's something going on that I want some help with. So I appreciate them being able to join me tonight. And overall, like I think I covered some of it, but our TSC really just handles pretty much everything transportation in the area. And by our area, I mean our 3 counties, Ingham, Clinton, and Eaton counties. We work with a lot of communities. We work with a lot of county local agencies, East Lansing being one of our major stakeholders. And we work very well with Cole and Scott and Ron, a lot of folks from East Lansing through our facilities, as well as we have a maintenance contract that we work closely with the city on as well. So we really appreciate the partnership there and the ability to work together and figure out solutions to some of our complex issues in the area. So I've worked in the area for a while. I've been in our Lansing Transportation Service Center on and off since 2005. So I am new to my position though, as the manager. So there's a lot that I'm learning every day. So there's some history there, but at the same time, I'm learning as I go here as well. So, all in all, we would be happy to take some questions here today, but just real fast. I think I'm going to try to share my screen. Is that okay? I had some issues with this the other day, but let me see if I can share this.
Holland, sorry.
Okay, here.
Yes, it's shared.
Okay, do you see a map?
Yes.
Okay. So this is just a real quick overview of our major projects, what we call our major projects. There's another whole list of projects that are what I would say it could still be high impact as far as impacts to access and traffic, but they are not some of our longer term fixes like these projects here are listed. But in this area here, you will know that we recently, as of last spring, it was announced that Governor Whitmer gave her blessing to a lot of Rebuilding Michigan funds. And I will be happy to say, and somewhat nervous, but happy to say that a lot of those funds are coming to our area. Only reason I'm nervous is that it's going to be tough to juggle all the projects and not create a lot of backups or a lot of impacts. So we're working through that process, but part of that is this plan right here that I'm showing to try to mitigate that the best we can. But we have, projects that impact East Lansing. We're going to be working on M43 just to the east of you a little bit through Meridian Township. We're going to be doing some work out there, 2-course mill and resurfacing, along with we're raising the grade in a couple of locations, which means we'll be lifting the roadway up about 2 feet right in front of like Playmakers, if you can picture the area, and then also the intersection with Okemos Road. So those 2 areas quite often see a lot of flooding. And our analysis shows that if we lift, basically elevate those 2 locations by approximately 2 feet's about all we can get reasonably and feasibly. It needs to go more, but 2 feet is all we can get without major impacts, more than what we can justify. But we will be raising those grades to try to help with that drainage, and then also doing some pavement repaving down through there to increase the lifespan of that roadway and bring it back into a good service condition, as well as we'll be doing some work on the non-motorized path there right by Playmakers as well. That's kind of tilting off a little bit, and it's been closed on and off quite a bit. So we'll be working on that. The main projects that we are working on internally right now are 127 is going to be a big investment in the area. We'll be working on that stretch from basically I-96 all the way to I-69 with total reconstruction, some heavy rehabilitation, some repaving, bridge work. There's a whole mix of fixes going on down through there. Pretty good size investment. I mean, actually really big investment. We are currently in the process of hiring a consultant firm to give us a hand with some of the modeling, and there was a feasibility study done on this quite a while ago, and they are going to revamp that feasibility study and start looking at the environmental impacts so that we know what our next steps are moving forward. So I hope in the next few months, maybe I'll get an invite back and I can talk more details about what those meetings and analysis have shown us. But in the meantime, right now, we're still trying to get the contract signed, which means it's just going through the Mdot process. Everything's improved. We just are waiting for like our Attorney General and some other offices to actually sign off on the contract. So we're moving forward with that. Design.
Can I ask a question, Greg?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Now, have you looked at Secretary Buttigieg's $621 billion infrastructure potential grants?
I have not.
Okay,
No, I'm sorry. No, I have not had a chance to look at that yet.
okay, thank you. I mean, it won't be until October until any of that money is available, but
Right. Yep. No, that is something we're going to start analyzing as well. But right now, I have not had a chance to review that in depth. I don't know if I'm sure the department has somebody who has been able to dive into that, and they're a resource to me. But I have not had a chance to talk to them about it or personally look at it myself yet.
okay.
Yeah, Greg, so this is Carrie. So, yeah, our Bureau of Transportation Planning, they typically, when we get that kind of funding request for projects, it kind of goes through a statewide process to select projects. With the way that the timing sometimes of the funding of that, it makes it difficult for us to maybe plan new stuff. So oftentimes what we do is we kind of plug holes and things that we already have scoped. So we don't, as far as the region goes, we don't have the list of projects yet, but they are working on it from a statewide perspective. So, and I know it was somewhat focused on the non-freeway program. So yeah, we should have more information to come, but we've just submitted kind of lists of projects that we've already scoped. So,
Well, one of my concerns is I'm every 2 years, Congress appoints me as the nonpartisan advisor to whoever the Secretary of Transportation is under the ITS Program Advisory Committee. And one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that they include in the award of these programs things that allow entities, agencies, whatever, to introduce the technology that will help advance the mobility and transportation infrastructure rather than try to add it after the fact. So rather than just do shovel-ready projects.
yeah, sometimes it's just challenging with how the funding comes, and then it's the timing of the money too, and how it can be spent and when, and
Right.
so yeah, so agreed. We'll have more information to come on that.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yep. Thank you, Carrie. So I guess we will have more information on all these projects in the near future. Right now, we are looking at all the operational and safety concerns that we all know exist in this corridor. And when we get somebody on board that can kind of show us bring the horses to the table, the resources to the table that we need to start working on some serious details, then we will be able to have those types of conversations and share what we're looking at and start looking for feedback as well. Because we have to have some details of what's being looked at before we can even solicit input. So that way we know we're all on the same page of what we're even looking at, so we can ask for opinions on what's going on. So
Greg, I see 4 elements that are identified for 2021.
yes.
Is there a high level you can give us on what those 4
Sure.
things could be?
Yep. So we have a mill and resurfacing project. Is my cursor showing up on there too, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll start over here on the right-hand side of what you're looking at. We have a mill and resurfacing project out in Williamston on M43. Basically, it starts and ends right there at M52. It goes from M52 to the west towards Williamston. So that's going to be a mill and resurfacing, kind of like a capital preventative maintenance project. The road's not in too bad a shape, so if we get in there with a quick resurfacing project, we're going to keep it in good condition type of a project. We have a similar type project on Grand River, right down the road from the airport, kind of an area. So we'll be working in that area from like where Grand River splits off back to the west. We'll be doing a resurfacing down through there, back towards the airport. We also have a project that's currently ongoing right now on I-69 from Charlotte south. Eventually, we're going to get all the way to I-94. So that Freeway Reconstruction project is underway right now. We've started asphalt paving actually last week on the project. So we're making good progress on this project right here. And then in our future lettings, we've got a project that's going to be coming up here pretty soon on I-69. Basically, our limits that we've been using to describe the project are from I-96 to Airport Road. So that's another freeway reconstruction project that we're going to be letting here soon. We're hoping to make a June or July letting with that project. So we're going to get out there and get going on that. But it most likely will, some of these dates are when we're going to start construction, major construction, or whether they're active, like I-69 down here from Charlotte South. We actually started that last fall with some maintaining traffic work, but the reconstruction started this spring out there. So, and then this project up on I-69 will start this year, mainly with some crossovers that we're going to need for maintaining traffic. And then we're going to prepare for more extensive work next year. We're hoping, we're looking at the schedule, trying to fit it into one season, and it's pretty substantial as far as we're taking out the sand sub base. We're going all the way to clay grade with that project. So we're moving a lot of earth with it as well. So it's going to be kind of a time consuming project. We may actually go into 23 is what it looks like it could possibly end up being, but we'll know more here when we can analyze it some more. And we're getting our final quantities and stuff like that buttoned up so we can get it out for letting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. So those, and then there are other projects that we do plan in Ingham County. Would you like me to cover some of those? Those were kind of some of our major ones, but there's a pretty good list. And I'm not sure what my time frame is tonight. So I would
go ahead and take all the time you need.
Okay. All right. Well, let me kind of go down through some of these here then. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, when we start looking at our outlook moving forward in Ingham County anyways, we start looking at, we have the project I started talking about before on Grand River. We call it 96 Business Loop from Martin Luther King to Center Street out there by the airport a little bit. We have our M43 job I mentioned from Mullet Street or Williamston to M52. We have we have a lot of guardrail we're going to be putting in out on, I can't say it's a lot of guardrail, but we're putting in guardrail out on I-96 in the Okemos Road interchange area. We've identified some stuff out there that could probably benefit from guardrail being installed. We have some installation of some signals down through there, some multiple locations. Some of these are a little bit further north. There's kind of a package of signals being installed around the area. And then we have, this is one right here that I wanted to make sure I touched on. It's not actually in that other map, is we have a Sidewalk Gap project that we're working on out by the Frandor area. And there's sections of sidewalk that we've identified with the city of East Lansing, some of our other partners that would benefit from some gaps being filled in for mobility. And we're working on that. And then we had some funding actually left over from winter maintenance this year that we were able to allocate and actually assign to we call it heavy maintenance, but it would be like a construction project. So we can use that maintenance money to actually do construction work. And we were able to basically get a mill and resurfacing project out there on basically our M43 area, similar to what we did last year when we paved out there. We were going to do the same thing in the other bound. So we'll be out there and paving on that. So that work will go on this year out there as well. And then we have our list of projects that are out further. We start talking about 127 further south in Ingham County from basically the Jackson County line north. We have a very, very large project there that's also bond funded as far as rebuilding Michigan. We'll be working on that in 22. We have 496. I'll plug our next segment of 496. We finished up out there last fall, and we are going to pick up where we left off and head east to the Grand River. So we're rebuilding 496 from Lansing Road east to the Grand River. So that's going to, that doesn't necessarily fall into East Lansing, but it impacts a lot of your stakeholders, customers, people who are coming to visit. So that project is, we're just starting our public outreach now. We are starting to meet with some of our major stakeholders like the City of Lansing, DTMB, GM, and we've also had a couple of public meetings soliciting information or input from the public, and we're going to continue that going. That's going to have a September letting this year, so we've got some time yet before that goes out. And that will be a design build project. So we have a plan, and we're going to put that plan in a contract. But some of those details might change a little bit when we get a design build team on board. If they have a better idea and they can prove it's equal or better, and we save either schedule or money based on what they're proposing. So, or both.
So can you talk a little bit about the bridge replacement, that 210069, the $152 million effort?
Let me see here.
Yeah, it's down, it's like the eighth one
Yeah,
down.
right here.
Yep.
Yes. Yep. So as part of that, let me go back to that map here real quick. As part of this project right here, this orange colored segment from 96 north to basically the Trowbridge area, we are replacing the bridges over Trowbridge and the railroads as part of that project. So, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we will be replacing those bridges over the railroad and over Trowbridge. We'll be widening and doing significant work to, Forest and Mount Hope down through there, bringing them up to standard. And then we will be doing some, rebuilding of the roadway down through there too. So that's where that big kind of price tag comes from on that one, is there's quite a few bridges that we're working on down through there. I mean, there's 5 bridges right there at that location with Trowbridge. That we're also improving safety for the off ramp if you're on northbound 127 and you want to make that. Right now it's got the sand barrel attenuator array right there that's always being hit.
Right.
So we are going to actually widen towards, I guess it'd be like the University Club side of the road, and get that ramp traffic out of the alignment of the freeway. And then we are building it's going to still be a tight curve, but it's going to be a curve that's got more of a radius to it than what's there now. So we're getting the freeway traffic, or the exit traffic, or the traffic that's trying to get off Trowbridge, off the freeway onto their own decel lane. And then we're going to be kind of increasing the radius of that ramp, so that it's not quite as sharp. So we'll be getting rid of that attenuator out there eventually.
Thank you very much.
Yep. So, but that's basically the segment from 96 up to Trowbridge. And then we have the other segment of 127 right here from the Red Cedar to Clark Road. This project right here, second one up from the bottom. This budget is moving a little bit, because we found some other things that we're probably going to add to that project, because we're there and we're going to try to impact this corridor once. Now, don't get me wrong, it's going to be a lot of impact, but we're going to try to get as much work done as we can in there in the amount of time we're there. So it's going to be significant, but we're hoping not to come back. In fact, you will start, it's not on this list, you'll start seeing some work out there this July, with a letting this July, so probably like August letting. We've got the barrier wall on 127. Many of the structures basically from Trowbridge north. So if you're on north and southbound 127, headed, if you can picture yourself going north, a lot of those bridges over the Red Cedar River, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Vine Cellars, a lot of those bridges down through there have a condition with their barrier wall that we call ASR, or alkaline silica reactivity. It's basically a chemical reaction that happens inside the concrete, and it eats the concrete out from the inside out. So there's no way for us to go in there and seal it up or do anything like that to stop this from happening. So we're worried about those actually lasting till these other projects come through. If you look at a couple of them, I would say that they're, they've met their, I would be very nervous if anyone ran into them. Let's put it that way. So we're going to come through with a project this year to make them safe. We're not going to replace them because the replacement cost is very expensive. And we're coming through in a couple years anyways with a project that will do that. So we are going to try to limit our throwaway costs while still improving safety with a project that we're going to let in July and go down through there with some temporary barrier wall and some retrofits. There will be some impacts to 127 traffic, but there's some significant bridge issues down through there that we're going to try to patch up with some good work now to make them safe. But when we come back through with our project in 23, 24, and 25, we'll be then able to get in there and do long-term fixes so that we won't be back again for a while.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep. So yeah, we will be in this corridor on and off quite a bit from now on, basically, which is not really ideal, but you all are familiar with the area. You know what the conditions are. You've seen, you know, they're falling apart faster than we can take care of them right now. So we're just trying to repair what we can to limp them along to these significant projects that are out a little bit further in our funding program.
Okay.
So that pretty much covers, this is the list of projects we did in 2020 that impacted Ingham County. This is what we've got coming forward for the next few years. And then there's obviously some maintenance projects in there as well that are not included here, but we will be putting that information out as they pop up, because sometimes we have our ideas of what we want to do, and someone says you might have funding and you might not. So we have to move forward as far as we can go until we either have the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And lucky for us, we got the thumbs up this year on the mill and resurfacing job out there on near Frandor. So we'll take care of that and move forward with other stuff as they come up. But that's really all I had today to talk about it. I will say that this project list right here, if you include this big pink line down here towards 94, if you include that construction budget into what I'm talking about, we're going to be investing nearly $800 million into the area between now and 2025.
Right.
So it's a lot to juggle, but we could double it pretty easily and not fix everything. So we're going to keep doing our best to get projects out the door and get them delivered. But that being said, I can turn it over to questions and go from there. If that sounds good to the group.
Sounds good. Joel, Joshua, Brad, anybody have any questions? Julie? Well, hearing none, I mean, I think, you've got an incredible amount of work to do, and you've done an incredible amount of work. So I really appreciate you coming and briefing us.
Yeah, and as details continue to get final, developed, and worked through, we will be more than willing to come back and share what we're thinking, because we are at some point in time going to have details where we're going to start soliciting input from our stakeholders, and East Lansing is going to be at the top of our list here when we start looking at 127, based on its location and your proximity and your partnership with us. We're going to definitely be talking about that moving forward.
Okay, well, if you have any updates that you think are relevant to post, just let Nicole know, and we'll schedule you in for our next meeting.
Yep. So
I have a question really quickly. This is just a sort of an idea brainstorming, not a detailed question. But certainly part of the work that we are lucky enough to get to do as volunteer commissioners for the Transportation Commission is to, think about, sort of dream big, imagine, and like the kind of communities that we want to live in, right? And so I'm just curious, since these are conversations that you have as part of your normal day-to-day work, I suppose, especially Carrie as a planner, I'd be curious if you would be willing to just think out loud about the future of the transportation discussion beyond just maintenance or fixing what already exists. But if you have thoughts about like the horizon of transportation, and I think that's a little bit what Scott was getting at when he asked about Secretary Buttigieg's announcement. But also, I'm just curious what you think as people who work in this area.
So Greg, I can kind of start with that. I think Our state transportation commission for a number of years has been pretty much freeway and interstate focused. I don't know with the change in administration, under the Biden administration, what that's going to look like. Because of, I think there's going to be a push for more of that non-freeway focus and kind of the Main Street focus for communities. I know that personally, MDOT's non-freeway system is struggling. I mean, we've got some real condition issues. Unfortunately, oftentimes it's not just the condition of the pavement, it's the underground infrastructure too. So we work really hard with our communities when we do have a Main Street type project to coordinate closely with the cities and the townships and the county road commit or the county counties to make sure that we're coordinating all of that underground infrastructure as well. Another thing that's been coming up is kind of the lead pipe connection on our non-freeway network. So to me, when we look at these non-freeway projects, I think it's really good for communities such as East Lansing to maybe envision what you want your corridor to look like, so that when we do have a non-freeway project, we're in a place where we can have those good discussions and we're not starting from scratch at that time, because at that time, once our funding is available, we've only got a few years. And I think in the future, those projects are going to take a lot more time than they have in the past because of some of the other regulations. But I do think that in the future, and I can't speak to our state transportation commission or anything, I think there is going to be a push to maybe start looking again at our non-freeway network. So, and I don't know what Greg and Melissa, if you guys have that same thought, but that's just kind of what's trickling down from our leadership. So.
And that's
Greg, Melissa, I didn't know if you have any other thoughts or if I totally spoke wrong, but that's what I see from the planning crystal ball. So
they have $45 billion in the plan for the lead pipe replacement. So I'm hoping that is something we can take advantage of.
Now, can I just ask a question? And if you can't answer it, that's fine. So you mentioned that your transportation commission at the MDOT level has been largely freeway focused. And I'm curious if that's just a function of the voices that are in the room, or if that's sort of just been the history of the organization as that being the priority, or, why you think it has dominated the conversation at the level that you serve.
I think I don't think it's necessarily the voices in the room. I think it's the need.
Okay.
And that's where we have, the highest volume of vehicles and trucks. And we only have so much money. So, we did start to stratify how that funding was going to be spent, and really, it kind of stood out that we really needed to make sure for interstate commerce and all of that stuff that had to have that focus. So while we're not ignoring the non-freeway network, it is a really challenging those are really challenging projects that require a lot of coordination. And so, I think that focus on the freeway network kind of was to, we're going to do our low hanging fruit from a condition standpoint.
Sure.
And get to our bridges and just make sure that we have that into, their state of good repair. So.
Okay, thank you.
Melissa, did you unmute because you want to add something?
I was just going to add in that, being on the operations side of things, I do feel I'm not as into the capital freeway side of things. I feel like a lot of the work that we do on operations is looking at signal timing, looking at ped crossings, looking at different things to just operate better with little amounts of money. And all of it comes from community input. I'm newer to this position, but we are interacting with, customer complaints, we call them, but so much of those complaints, the action, little tweaks and things that make things better. So at the TSC side of operation side of things, there still is a big focus on, ped walks and all those things. It just doesn't get the big funding. I guess.
Those sort of community details.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel like we get a lot of input that leads to great things. So
great.
Scott House, did you have your hand raised, or were you just?
Yeah, no, I did. So just to double down on what Melissa said, a lot of our discussions are driven by resident concerns, and it could be crosswalk timing, signal timing, and we have these detailed discussions, and they're very meaningful, and there's a great relationship. And, you know, one thing that people might not have known, but Mdot updated all the signals along Grand River Corridor to audible, and they did an exception to policy and saved the initial estimate would have been over $500,000. They found a way to do that for under $90,000. Those are small wins that don't get leveraged or talked about, where all those dialogues about how to stretch the buck further. And even the collaboration where Nicole tore up Michigan Avenue to put a giant sewer and water main down it past 2 summers. MDOT was a great partner for that because it was their right of way. And we worked collaboratively because it's, you know, everyone sees the surface of the road, but the biggest liability is what's underneath the road. That costs 4 to 5 times more in the interior non-highway freeway trunk line miles. Those are the hidden time bombs, such as the lead and copper rule, sewers are failing, water main that keep breaking on them. So they've been great to work with in that regard and in all other instances.
I can tell you anytime anything about Grand River comes up, Scott is always singing your praises. And I'm not. And unfortunately, one of our transportation commissioners, John, isn't here to hear all of this great work because he's always fixated on these, you know, those sort of community details, Melissa, you were just describing. So we'll pass along that the assurances that you're paying attention to these concerns.
And the one concern from John is always a speed limit, and that's out of MDOT's hands too, the 85th percentile. I don't know if Greg or Melissa, if you want to just kind of describe that.
What would you like, Melissa? Let me give me the nod. Go. Want me to go? I can go. Sure. Okay. So yeah, like Scott hinted on there, we post speed limits, but we don't set them. We're basically posting them based on what was set by the police. And the police, it's basically a process where there's a speed study that's done, and that speed study is looking for the 85th percentile of what traffic is traveling at, whatever rate of speed that is. And you know, if it's 35 and the community would like it lowered to 25, and they sign on to the process, because that's part of it as well, is state police will not come do their speed study until there's a resolution or something that basically confirms the fact that whoever's asking for the study is going to agree with whatever the outcome is. And if that means the speed limit goes up, that's what's going to happen. There is no, okay, let's not do that. Let's just forget about the study. They don't do that. If the 85th percentile shows the speed limit's going up, we have to post it at that new speed limit. And it's kind of a process that, you know, leads to a lot of disappointment a lot of times. So that's why it can be a touchy subject for us to discuss. Because I mean, there's a lot of passion out there regarding speed limits all over the place, and we totally understand. Believe me, we get it. We understand speed, and we understand what it means, and we understand what it can do. At the same time, we don't set the speed limit. We basically just post the signs that are in alignment with what the study and what the process has resulted in. So. We're happy to talk about speed limits, and we're happy to go over through the details and what they mean, what they could result in, or model, you know, what could happen under certain scenarios. You know, but at the same time, it's really kind of outside of our hands as far as the actual setting of the speed limit.
And Greg, the one thing that's also tough, you're doing a tremendous amount of work. You're improving pavement condition. Well, guess what? When the pavement was in poor condition, that was natural traffic calming.
Yeah.
All that Saginaw is in great condition. The speed limit jumped up 5 to 10 miles per hour because people could zoom down that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
unintended consequences.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's a good point. And we come through and we update the standard, like on the freeways, we update the standards, which usually means make the shoulders wider, move guardrail back, open it up, you know, which usually results in people feeling more comfortable. And usually means higher speeds. And so it's kind of like you said, unintended consequences of us trying to make things better, but we'll still keep working to make things better.
I think John's other pet peeve was the People's Church crossing.
Yes.
Is that his other one? Because it's only like partially signaled.
Yeah.
I think that's John's other big topic.
Okay, yeah, we talk about this one internally too, to be honest, because it is a tricky one. When you start looking at the signal, the different directional traffic there for roadway, for the vehicles, as far as which one to signal and who you're giving a message to and how to make it safe, it's tough. With that through traffic on westbound Grand River, it is, unless we put up some sort of stop condition there for that traffic, it's not safe to give someone, the thumbs up to start walking with a signal head for pedestrians. So we're still looking at that. We are looking. We don't have a good solution yet, but we are looking at it. It is on our radar. We do know that crossing gets used by a lot of people. So we are very aware of that location, the crossing. We've done a couple projects down through there too, where that crossing, impacted how we staged our project. And so we don't have a good solution yet, but right now it's as good as the current conditions can allow. We just need to keep looking for other solutions if we can come through there with a signal modernization project or something at some point in time.
Yeah, and we did talk about this one again today. Like I said, because it was made aware to us so many times, we are coming through with some enhanced pavement markings this summer, but we don't want to put those signs up that say yield to peds because the traffic isn't yielding to peds. So we're doing what we can with the current configuration, but like Greg said, looking to maybe there's some geometric changes or signal modernization changes in the future that we could implement.
Okay.
Yeah, I think some of the concern was just there's increased density, especially at that spot now. So what is that going to mean for pedestrian traffic and bike traffic and whatever else? I guess that's just something we'll have to keep an eye on and check over time.
Absolutely. And we can continue to talk to Scott and Nicole about, what the modeling is looking like in that area. And believe me, this could be a topic of discussion every time we get together, because we are looking for solutions. The problem is the funding associated with those solutions is sometimes, tied to other things, and those other things don't apply. So we're trying to, like I said, we're looking at the entire area, trying to come up with an idea. We also don't want to push the issue somewhere else. This is another part of it we're looking at.
Right.
So, sometimes you fix a problem in one location and you might make it worse somewhere else. So we're also aware of that. And that's part of the reason why it's been difficult for us to come up with a good solution other than what's out there right now.
Are there any other questions for Greg, Melissa, or Carrie? Okay, well, with that, I very much appreciate you having come by, and don't hesitate to schedule another time if you think there's something important to tell us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Right. Well, that was a great discussion. So we will continue on to 4.2, which is the discussion of invitees for future meetings. We kind of keep this one on every time to figure out who's on deck, who's up next that we want to try and get to these meetings, and always giving a couple options if people are not available. So our next meeting is June the 7th. And then we'll go from there. So there's a list in there of what we've spoken about before. So turn it over to you guys.
Does anyone have a compelling presence that they would like to have here?
Compelling in who you would want first, or compelling in like someone not on this list?
Well, in terms of timeliness, we got something coming up in June. We got Orange Barrel season coming up. Scott, is there anyone you would like to see?
I think it might be interesting for you to talk to the Meridian Township Transportation Commission, because I think there's a lot of shared ideas. And also when Greg and everyone's talking about all this federal money, what could be some regional goals that could be shared? Mm-hmm. And I think that'd be kind of interesting, just to have that community thing about what people would like to see. If it was a brainstorming, where are the gaps? Because MDOT's doing a great job on the highways, but how do we take care of some of these interior roads or non-motorized? What type of regional investment might be?
Okay, that sounds good. Why don't we make them first, but we need a second in case they're not able to make it in June. Anybody else have a second, Julie?
I have a question more than a suggestion. The ongoing conversation, well, the new but soon to be ongoing conversation around modifying, if that's the right word, Albert, to promote more street activation in front of the restaurants downtown. I know that is a conversation that's gaining traction in the community, and I assume at some point it's something we would formally discuss. Maybe not. Not that I want to jump into the fray, but if that is a conversation, I mean, I think it would be an interesting conversation for us to have, whether or not we are formally asked to actually weigh in on this conversation. And I don't know the degree to which we will be formally asked to participate in that decision.
Well, I think it's right to be preemptive, to have a discussion among ourselves about it first. The question would be, who is it we'd want to come have talk to us?
No, I know. And I am open to suggestions on this. Joshua, you seem to have an idea.
I'm just curious, who spearheads those initiatives at the city today? Like the last summer, putting all the picnic tables down there. I've seen a lot of new tables. Who does that?
It's our economic development administrator. So it goes through our planning and department, economic development.
So maybe that's who we extend the invitation to.
Yeah, that would be nice. I think that would be useful in any case, even if it's not specifically around that topic.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, the city council has the decision point if they're going to move forward with any road closures. So it wouldn't necessarily come to this group as a recommendation to city council. It's going to city council to make that final decision. So
we should be aware of it and discuss it in case anybody comes in over the transom with complaints or issues or whatever.
And you're talking about the Albert 1-lane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do this.
And part of it, I will say this, part of, I think, the value of, I think, us even informally participating or learning from the people behind this initiative is, I think, collectively, many of us have some ideas and enthusiasm around this topic. And so, again, in the spirit of brainstorming and of, making a contribution where we're able to, even I think this kind of work is activating in a lot of ways. So if we can contribute our voices to the larger conversation, even informally, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, we can invite Adam Cummings to the next.
Okay,
let's go for Meridian first to see if we can't get them on board. And if not, then let's go for Adam.
Now, here's something though, and I think that's great. We have our meeting in June. We are not going to be meeting that first Monday in July, as indicated, when we switched our meeting dates around. So then the next one is August, and there won't be things happening on Albert in August as the students come back. So I think it is beneficial to discuss this earlier. And, there might be a benefit of both parties coming to that meeting. I mean,
yeah,
don't make it too long, people, but.
No, I think that's fine. I mean, we have plenty of time. Go ahead, Scott.
An easier one, I think the Meridian one might turn into a big discussion. I'd be worried about doing that. But I think Tri-County would be a flexible agency that would be able to come in, and that might be the time where there's more clarity as to the federal funding. Tri-County Regional Planning Commission, they're the ones that will orchestrate all the federal aid to local jurisdictions, and they'll have a lot of ideas about what's happening, where the trends are, and that gives you a regional perspective as far as transportation planning. And they might be a little more contained versus Meridian, that could be a Pandora's box of, I think that could be a really good discussion.
Well, would you be okay with moving Meridian to August and getting both Tri-County and Adam in here in June?
Yeah, we can look at that.
If they're available, I think that would be a nice pairing.
Thank you, Julie. Yes, it's available.
Okay,
Okay, any other discussion? Next item.
next item is, I'll call it Scott's item, discussion of the important transportation mobility issues in East Lansing. It's kind of a
You know,
round.
and I think we already covered that because I think we've talked about the Albert Road. I think we've talked to death the crossing, John's project. Is there anybody have anything new? Okay, then I'll just leave that as a placeholder for every meeting, that if something comes up or somebody becomes aware of something, we have a place to put it on the.
I actually do have a question. Every so I'll take that as a compliment, Scott.
Good, you should.
Okay. Every so often there's a discussion about crossing on Hagedorn between Grand River and Bircham and the fact that there isn't a crossing point.
Right.
And I was curious if there is any status updates on that conversation or that ongoing question.
Scott, do you know why there isn't a crossing there?
Because we love to jaywalk.
Because there's not a signal in there, and really,
Yeah.
there's been ongoing discussions about adding a signal at Albert and Hagedorn. But so when we look at our long-term planning for our transportation improvement plan, Hagedorn would probably be the next project up.
Okay.
Because that pavement condition stinks, and there would be possibly some mid-block crossings as well. The danger there, though, is that's a funky corridor, and without some type of signal or other things, we get into the situation such as Grand River, where there's, I think it'd be tough to really have a, full spectrum user crossing without a signal.
You know, if there's a history of vulnerable road users being impacted, attempting to cross?
So in theory, like if I was talking about, I think there was a certain level of insensitivity in the past where people would say there's a signalized intersection, eighth of a mile to the north, eighth of a mile to the south, and everyone else jaywalks. Just to be blunt, I think there's room now to look at making the road more usable for all users, such as pedestrians, and getting that mid-block somehow. Either I think it makes most sense at the intersection, either through a signal, or if it's not at the signal, a mid-block with an island or something of more protection.
Okay.
But that would just put you in sense of time and space. The earliest that would be discussed for execution would be 2024, unless there's an onslaught of federal money where we could be able to accelerate a project like that. But then here comes the other challenge we're going to face. If we get a bunch of federal money dropped on our laps, we need public participation and studies to justify things, to make sure we're doing the right thing at the right place. So we're just not spending money for the sake of it. A lot of opportunity, but just how to do it the right way, thoughtfully.
Okay.
I know it's been mentioned. I'm not gonna say whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, but road diet on Hagedorn, is that related to this?
Could be.
Obviously, it's easier to get a crossing on a road that's not 4 lanes across, but
so you'd have to do a study to validate that, because that's a busy corridor. But you look at all those people that have to back out of their driveway and those narrow lanes, that stinks. That's a tough one. I think a road diet there would be transformational, but I think that there'd be a lot of perception pushback. But I think it would be safer, slow people down, maybe help the safety at the intersection to the south at Grand River.
Mm-hmm.
Do those two issues go together though, or are they separate things? Like putting a crossing in, does that go with a road diet, or would we?
It's easier to cross 1 lane versus 2 lanes, because when you're crossing 2 lanes of traffic, someone might not see you.
It would all be under that umbrella of that project that would be planned for 20.
Okay.
Right.
Because I think both of those things could be a little contentious. So like.
Oh yeah.
Probably, yeah.
The last time it was repaved, it was contentious.
2 separate things.
Yeah.
Trying to convince people to do 2 separate things is probably harder than convincing them to do one. Even though convincing them to do one is going to be a heavy haul.
So if you said 2024, 25. So I guess here's my question then. What is the timeline by which passionate voices need to be starting to prepare their messaging? Because if I recall correctly, that was one of the issues the last time it was repaved, was that the idea of a road diet, though it did have some support, was introduced too late. And so if people, if we're reimagining what Hagedorn could be, like at what point does that conversation need to happen before community members are told, oh, it's too late, that ship has sailed?
Before we introduce it to the community, we'd have to do a study to go, it's feasible per the study.
I see. Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Got it.
To give you
We don't want people to dream before it's possible.
Yeah.
There's no dreaming.
So to give you a little bit of perspective, we are putting out an RFP for engineering consultants to design the Bircham 2022 project.
Oh, okay.
This week, and
good.
We're a little bit later than what we were the last time. So you start that about, that 18 months, prior to getting things on the road, because that construction won't start until, May or June of 2022.
Right. Okay.
So there's a lot of time before that. And again, as part of that, there's the studies that Scott mentioned to make sure that it's feasible. And
So, to answer your question, Julie, that would put it September, October when they need coalescing that input.
Right.
And honestly, Scott, also, I think the best time to do a traffic study for this would be next fall when we get full population back.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
There's probably going to need to be a lot of traffic studies at that point and counts just to get a true up of how things are performing, because we did a lot of things. And I'm curious about the traffic stress, because we've all seen there's fewer people on the roads, but the people that are on the roads are driving horribly.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
We actually had an increase in deaths on the roads last year, even though the vehicle miles traveled were so low. The report from Federal Highways said that the people that were driving much more risky behavior, faster, less attention to road signage. Okay, so the next item was the Highland Avenue speeding concerns.
And this is just on here to kind of keep our everybody still thinking about it, or if there was concerns from the residents. And we didn't have any attendees at this point, but this is still something that's on our radar to keep going with as students return in the fall to get some of that traffic data on.
Anybody have any input for this?
Is there any updated data at all, or we're still at the same point as
I don't think we'll have any valid updated data until we get the traffic volume back.
Okay.
Scott.
Also, the police have started neighborhood resource teams east and west, and this is one of their kits where they will focus on that, and they'll log patrol hours on the road, and they'll do focused enforcement times. So there's ongoing effort that's not captured by this commission, and that makes me loop back to thinking about future agenda items. Once they get some more experience under their belts, I think you might be really impressed by hearing the efforts of the community policing that's going, because we have the neighborhood resource specialists that are non-law enforcement intervention. So if you're having an issue, instead of sirens and someone with a badge and gun showing up, it's a social worker or someone that can go, hey, what's the problem? And that helps with speeding too. Someone just counting in an unmarked vehicle, looking at people run stop signs, because that's different from when a marked patrol car sits there.
How would we as a commission be made aware of when that information is available?
I don't know if they'll be able to share that all the time readily, because it's kind of gray area law enforcement,
Okay.
but it might be worthwhile just to have that. They could be a topic, or we could ask them for that output, or they could be a guest here. I think it'd be
They
good.
were here in March.
I would suggest we invite them again, say like next March.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of would like it sooner than that, like November timeframe, just because they'll have more information from the student body. And I think what Scott's talking about is that they're going to have already had these studies done and these reporting done. And I don't want to get 9 months away from whenever that's fresh data.
Yeah, I was thinking more in a big picture sense, to better understand the preemptive problem solving they're doing, so that it doesn't end up with citizens coming to us with formal complaints, which are really neighborly complaints that could probably be solved at a more local level. So that's why I was suggesting, a full year would allow them to maybe give us a perspective on the overall work they're doing, not specifically necessarily the Highland project.
That's great. I think we ought to have them on an annual basis along with several others. The list that we already have of entities like the Tri-County and Meridian, et cetera. We ought to have those on an annual basis, but I would like to be opportunistic when there is something that comes up from work that they've done, studies they've undertaken, or information that they have, to make sure that they know that's something that they could present to us at any time that would be valuable for sharing. Okay. Next item was the traffic calming action plan.
Again, this is set here as a placeholder, knowing that, it's something that, there's a kind of a separate committee, I'll put in quote, looking at aspects and ways that we can improve this, but it's more of a long-term goal than a short-term meeting by meeting goal.
Who was on that committee? Wasn't that Sayed, Joshua, and Troy?
That's correct.
And
Okay.
me. But so there hasn't been any meeting, and there's open meetings issue by meeting in subgroups.
Right. Understood. Would you guys like to carve out a piece of time at in our June meeting just to talk about this? Or
Yeah,
not?
sure.
Okay, then Nicole, let's put that on we'll make that on the agenda with Sayed to coordinate a discussion among us. And maybe what he can do is send out any questions he'd like us to think about, or thoughts he'd like us to think about, or the committee, Troy or Joshua, whatever, in advance, so that we're not listening to the silence of the crickets.
Yeah, but Scott has some reservations on that last time, right? Scott, if you can, there are some hurdles, right? Before we.
Yeah, I think there's concerns about Open Meeting Act when we're meeting with even by Zoom, what we have to do, and there's some, it makes it tougher. Also, we have to be careful about what happens deliberating via email. Questions in advance could happen, or ideas, and then be brought back to the general commission for discussion.
Right, fair point.
And I'm going to give you the biggest problem with this neighborhood traffic action plan. It tries to cover too much, and when you read it, it's hard to understand what you do as a resident. It's not plain, it's too wordy, it just needs to be simple. I have a concern, and you have to go through too many hoops to get action, and how to make it simpler. And
have we triaged what the most important areas are for us to look at? I mean, you have to have a list of the things that are the biggest problem areas for you, right?
Yep.
I think it's how to reduce neighborhood speeding. But when these were put in, these were developed in the 90s. This was a popular thing. But then we've seen that if you want to stop people from speeding, you need to pull them over and give them a ticket.
Right.
So we can educate people to we're blue in the face, and enforcement is key. And that's why I think the neighborhood resource team could almost supplant that traffic calming action plan, because having enforcement sends a bigger message, because we can collect data. But the other issue here is the fact that there's a point under the current laws that if we do traffic studies, local streets have a alibi for a couple years. There's a chance that we start doing traffic studies on local streets that those speed limits could increase under the current legislation, which is crazy. But it's just not Mdot that's vulnerable to that.
So let me ask the commission a question: do we need to keep this traffic calming action plan on the agenda? I mean, we're kind of.
Or one thing, Scott, to one point, we could have a consultant look at that and possibly help guide a discussion, someone that's multiple jurisdictions, because we talked about this briefly, because none of us are going to be truly experts in this. We all see what I see what my friction points are from I feel for the residents that want relief.
Right.
Let's want a stop sign. They think it's going to solve it. Well, right. Also right now, observations of traffic are very unique because no other point in our history have people been home playing with their kids so much in the yard and being observant of how poorly people drive and Amazon and other things. So there's a lot more attention to it. So I think this is a tough time to go after that, but a consultant could help that as well, which we could facilitate.
Okay.
So to that point, I don't think it needs to be on every agenda. It might be come back in a couple months with a kickoff of a.
Well, we have the ability to put in announcements and reports under items 7 and 8. So unless we have something specifically we're going to talk about, I think we leave it off and everybody in the commission know that if you want to talk about something with traffic calming, you bring it up under announcements or reports from the board members. Any objection to that? Okay, hearing none. Next item, do we have any reports from the board members? Okay, I have one. I'm giving a lunch and learn on Friday with AJ Boggs here in East Lansing. And I've sent the notice to the press release to Nicole, and she can share if she desires. Are there any announcements from any of the board members? Hearing none, I will accept the motion to adjourn. Yes, Nicole.
Sorry, I missed my opportunity there to give a quick update on projects. So
yeah, we don't have roundtable in here. We didn't have roundtable on the agenda. So yeah, let's do a roundtable. Nicole, you're first.
All right, great. So as everybody knows, we've started some of our construction projects within the city of East Lansing. We're currently working on the Evergreen Utility Improvement Project and Albert Avenue Extension Project. That's right in the downtown, the core of downtown, and that is going very well. Abbott right now is closed right by City Hall, so we can make a critical utility connection. And, you know, we're going to make that. We're going to move forward with also repaving that section, that last section there of Abbott Road that is in wonderful shape in front of City Hall. So we'll take that opportunity and mill and resurface that, and also improve the pedestrian crossing there to City Hall. Right now it's a little close to the driveway entrance. So we're going to move it south a little bit to kind of align with the doors. So this is kind of another component to just, you know, helping things or helping improve things. So, you know, as we close Abbott Road on the south side by City Hall, we might as well close it on the north side as well. So our second project that's going to be starting here within a week is our Mdot LAP project of Abbott Road from Saginaw to Lake Lansing Road. That's a reconstruction of that corridor. It's going to very much improve, especially some of the sections there on the north side. So that's scheduled to kick off on the 10th of May. That's a week from today, and they will maintain access at least one lane of traffic throughout the duration of the project, because there's a lot of houses and residential areas and fire stations and commercial properties that just have one way in and out. So we've started that communication with them and have sent them information.
I have a question. If you close off both the north and south sides of the sidewalk, what kind of a walk around does that create?
You know, we're working through that as part of that, but the sidewalk should not necessarily be closed.
Oh, okay.
So there might be intermittent closures throughout the, where we might have to replace a driveway or things like that. And then we do have, you know, we would make sure that we sign that appropriately. But the main focus is in the roadway.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Our next project is East Glencairn Neighborhood Improvements Project. That is south of Saginaw, north of South Lawn, east of Harrison, and west of Abbott. So it's a neighborhood improvements project. And we're going to have a lot of water main replacement, large diameter sewer construction on North Lawn, and milling and resurfacing on some of the northern streets there. So that one has been awarded to E.T. McKenzie, and we're scheduled to start that probably within the next 3 weeks or so. And that's very exciting as well. So let's see, there we have that. Then we have our local street project that we have not bid out yet. That's getting closer, and that's Glencairn, Blanchette, Roseland, Oakland, Maplewood, Charles, and Division. And those are all milling and resurfacing projects. We're going to do some large diameter valve replacements on Bircham that will have some traffic impacts as well.
Okay.
And there's probably a couple I'm missing. So any questions or concerns on any of the projects that are going on in East Lansing? Okay.
Okay, Joel, any comments for roundtable? You're muted.
Not right now.
Okay, Troy,
Not for me.
Julie,
None right now, thanks.
Joshua.
Nothing in the immediate. I'm very interested in kind of the future of where transportation is heading, specifically with electric vehicles and autonomy. And I'd be curious to know what initiatives is the city taking to implement electric charging stations, and thinking about a road system that accommodates autonomy. Maybe that's a little more later stage, but in the immediate, I know electric vehicles is increasingly important. And I know a lot of students who are, driving electric vehicles and having a very hard time finding where to park those vehicles, charge those vehicles. I do think that's something that could definitely make the city of East Lansing very attractive. And so maybe something to think about for a future meeting, but something that's definitely important to me and
Yeah.
others.
Yeah, that talk I'm giving on Friday is exactly on that. I mean, a lot of things that people don't understand is that if we converted all the cars in the United States to electric, it would consume 25% more power than we actually produce. And so the whole issues of infrastructure, smart city, what the reality is of the AV timeline is, and if you can't come to the meeting, just shoot me an email and I'll send you the presentation I'm going to give. But basically, there's a lot more hype than there is reality about the progress of AVs and the progress of EVs. We only really have about 6% of our vehicles are EVs right now. And it's going to be, to your point, it's very hard to find charging infrastructure. And even when you do find it, somebody will park there all day rather than charge up for a couple hours and leave. So yeah, there's a lot of fundamental infrastructure issues to moving this forward.
Right.
And it's only going to be exacerbated with e-scooters and e-motorcycles and all of those other things, especially in a campus environment.
Right. And can you drop a link to the meeting on Friday?
I sent it to Nicole, so she should be able to forward it out.
Cool. I'd love to attend.
Sayed, did you have anything for roundtable?
Related question, do we have a threshold at what percentage of the electric vehicles we need all these facilities? If the percentage is too low, probably it's not feasible, right? So are we monitoring that? How many vehicles are registered in city of East Lansing? And
yeah, according to the studies I've read, you can get to somewhere between 25 and 30% of electric vehicles in the population. Now,
okay,
understand we only have 6% of the population of vehicles right now are electric. We only replace 6.7% of our vehicles every year. That's how often it takes us 15 years to turn over the entire fleet. Mm-hmm. So if tomorrow all the automakers only made electric vehicles, it would take at least 5 years to get to that 30%. So you're really looking at somewhere in the range of 15 to 18 years before you actually get to that 30%. And then the issue is that, well, okay, will we have solar infrastructure? Rather than putting hydrogen fuel into cars, why don't you use it like a propane tank and fuel generators rather than taxing the grid? So there's all of those issues that have to come forward.
Yeah, sure.
And then there's the issue of managing, in Shanghai, there's 150,000 electric vehicles. First thing they do when they drive into town is they want to charge up. Well, the last thing you want is 150,000 cars putting a load on the grid during peak hours. So what they do is they say, tell me how much fuel energy you need and when you need it, I'll suck the rest of the energy out of your battery, put it into the grid, and give it back to you at preferential rate right before you need to leave. So that kind of thinking works well under socialism, doesn't work so well under democracy.
Sure.
Because they just tell you what you're going to do, right? So, I mean, there's not a lot of thought going into, there's a lot of people trying to invest in how do I provide infrastructure for charging, but there's not a lot of thought in terms of how I generate the power I need to actually do the charging.
Exactly. And also whenever we talk about autonomous vehicles or electric vehicles, I think typically we think of like an urban environment. But, at some point in time, there will be intra-city traffic, right, of these vehicles. So then the infrastructure has to be, enough so that they can accommodate these type of vehicles, right? But that may come maybe later. It's not a very simple problem, like you mentioned, Scott. I think it will be. I will be happy to attend you. If Nicole can send us that.
Yeah, demand always outpaces capability. It always has in transportation, particularly in the US. Scott, did you have any comments for Roundtable?
No, but I was really intrigued by Joshua's thought. And just to answer that real quick, one of our biggest challenges is our transportation is funded by the gas tax. And how do we keep, as we electrify, how do we sustain investment? Because the current system is not going to work long term.
Yeah, total excise tax is failing with the advent of electric vehicles because, and that's why they're looking at, do I pay an excise tax based on when I drive, based on what I drive, where I drive, how I drive? If Joshua's driving a Prius on peak hours and Scott House is driving a Hummer, on off hours, the question is a very complex issue in terms of how we determine what the impact is to the road infrastructure and how you tax that energy.
Yeah, I think the gas tax the way we calculate right now has to be modified for, like Scott mentioned for the future, because we will not get enough money now based on the gas tax.
Okay, Brad, I wanted to ask you, did you have anything for Roundtable?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Okay, Emily?
Nope, I'm all set.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And I need a second.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to changing the motion to by acclamation? Hearing none, the motion, we've adjourned at 7:18.